What's up, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are in Cherokee, North Carolina at the Oconaluftee Indian Village, and we're going to go through and check it out. I've never been here, and I've been wanting to come for a while, so let's go check it out.
3, 2, 1.
This Karen here can do three different types of weaving. She can do the oblique method, which you see her doing there. That is the usage of, incorporating the use of beads into the design. Now, she can also do a single weave. It's a simple over and under method that would only make plaid and check designs. And these right over here are double weaves. That's similar to work that's found on the loom, so she can get a greater variety of those designs. Before the introduction of all these commercial yarns, she would take strands from the mulberry root bark or Indian hemp plant, twine those together to be able to weave her belts out of, or she could use the mountain bison fur. And they were indigenous to this area. The last one was killed off in the late 1700s over in the Biltmore Forest due to the fur trade. She is so talented here. She can weave between 10 and 200 strands of yarn at one time. Now, this piece is an example of those 200 strands, and it took her about 5 days to make this piece here. Now, if she was going to weave pieces large enough to sew together to make a blanket or a shawl, these would have to be much longer than this to be able to sew those together. We use a steel needle, flax thread, and glass beads. And before the introduction of those materials, we'd make our needles out of bone. So that would be coming from the straight part of the deer's leg right here just above the hoof. We lay that bone out in the hot sun for a couple of hours till it got nice and heated up. Take a large river rock and smash it and pick out one of those shards to become our needle. And we would use the teeth, bones, and claws of animals to adorn our outfits with. We'd trade seashells with the coastal tribes, make some beads out of clay. We'll talk a little more about that at pottery. And we'd also use copper. We do have copper mines here. It's too soft to make any type of weapons out of, so that would be just for decoration. With the introduction of those commercial glass beads and everything, the two styles that we start doing is scroll work like this. That would go down the sides of the men's leggings, the hemline of the ladies' skirts, our moccasins, bags, match coats, pretty much anything we wanted to decorate. Now, these two types are solid work. So what we're going to do is take one bead at a time and pass through the next one. And that'll ensure that each one of these beads has a thread running through it twice, so if this were to break, we lose just minimal beads and those repairs would be pretty simple for us. Now these, of course, this style of belt here, we would take pieces of buckskin and sew those on to serve as ties. Of course, this one with the yarn in it, those already got your little ties right there. Scroll work like this can take a couple of days up to a week, just depending how intricate the design is and how large the piece is. The belts like this, any of the solid work, take you probably about a week, depending on the length and width of it and how many times you're going to put it down being aggravated at it. Amy, her pottery, now she would get her clay from the sides of the riverbank about 1 to 1.5 feet down below the topsoil there. She's going to find some decent clay deposits. Now once this clay has been refined, getting all of the debris and rocks and things like that out of there, she could do 2 methods. The first one for the smaller pots is going to be a ball method. So she'd start with that ball of clay and press firmly into the center of that with her thumb. She'll start to gently work the clay outward into the shape of the pot she wants. Now for larger pieces, she'll use a coil method. So she'll going to start with a flat disc of clay and then gently roll out coils, kind of like you're playing with your Play-Doh as kids, making those little snakes. And she'll stack those one atop the other until she gets the height that she wants in it. She'll work those bumps and ridges smooth in that piece. Once the clay has dried just a little bit, she'll be able to take a seashell or even a piece of river cane with some notches cut into it, and these will work like potato peelers. It's going to scrape off that excess clay that she can use in another pot. Now before we had these lovely metal tools to work with today, she looked to nature to create her designs in the piece. So she could get her a little stick and sharpen that up, or use the tip of a deer antler to create some designs. She could also use seashells and corn cobs to make different textures on these pots. Once Europeans arrived and we started trading with them for metal tools and different things like that, we'd start to take soft woods and start carving designs into those. And this is going to work for our stamped pottery. So we just gently wet that and just start punching it onto the side of the pot there to create that impression of design. Now we don't use glazes on our pieces, so to get this pretty shine that you see, she'll take a smooth river stone and start gently rubbing on the piece, and the friction is going to cause the oils to come to the surface and burnish that pot for her. And once these have completely dried out, that really kind of depends on the weather, how quickly that clay is going to dry. You got perfectly sunny days in front of you, some pieces can be dried out enough in about a week. If you have very finicky weather like we're known for here, sometimes it'll take up to a month for the clay to fully dry out. But once those have fully dried, she's going to build a fire in a pit and place each one of these pots around the outer perimeter of that fire until they get nice and hot. It's tempering that clay up. And once they turn a whitish blue coloration, she then roll those pieces into the center of the fire, and they'll continue that cooking process until they get completely fired. We would take knives made out of flint that would have been found in Tennessee or Kentucky, so we could scrape the barks off of trees to make our masks. And we'd also use gourds to make those. And we didn't like to waste anything, so we'd turn the back of those gourds into bowls like this one here. And we'd also use those for water dippers and rattles to give us some rhythm in our dances. During that time, these would have been our eating utensils. This one was a fork. It's made out of a piece of mountain cane with some notches cut into it. And this one would have been a spoon. It's a bison horn. It's been eventful giving a kid medicine, isn't it? The lovely Miss Lucille breaking down some river cane to make the basket. Now before she was able to use that nice steel knife she has there, she would take a knife made out of flint to scrape some barks off the trees again so she could make her baskets. Now this one here is made of hickory bark, and it was made in 1952, the year this village first opened, so it's holding up really well in its age. Now after those metal tools arrived, we'd start working on both the river cane that you see her breaking down into splints right here. We'd also use white oak. The white oak, when we go to gather it, we'll go into the woods and find a tree sapling, probably no bigger around than this post strut over here, because once it gets too big, it's too knotty and hard to work with. So they'll cut that tree down, and then they'll start to split it down with a froe to be able to get them down small enough like this so she can take her pocket knife and start to pop out each one of her splints. Now with the river cane, you see how she's splitting it down there. It's very difficult to work with. That is a very hard material to work with. You'll see her popping those pieces out, and what she's going to do here in just a few minutes is start to take off the inner fibers on the inside of the piece, like that right there. And once she gets that all scraped down, it's going to be some nice fine splints for her to be able to use. Now to color these splints, you could use some yellow root for yellow colorations. Bloodroot will give her orange and red colorations. She'd use some walnut bark for her brown colorations, and her black colorations will come from butternut bark. Now, unlike commercial dyes of today, these will not fade over time. So we're going to start with our arrowheads. We're going to get a large chunk of flint or obsidian like this. Now that would have been traded from tribes down in South America. We're going to take a large river stone. We're going to knock off a shard of this. It's just a smaller piece that we can work with. And once we have that workable chunk, we're going to take smaller river stone and start to chip away at this. You can see how easy that breaks off. I'll take a master arrowhead maker about 15 to 20 minutes to knock one arrowhead out. Once they get it completely shaped out, we're going to take a deer antler, or in modern day a nail, start to do pressure flaking, and that's adding the sharpness to that arrowhead. We make two kinds. We've got this round shoulder arrowhead here. That's tied onto a piece of our mountain cane using strands from the Indian hemp plant. This one we'd have used in hunting because once it was fired into that animal, we could retrieve this and reuse it again. This one, or even these little guys here, these are brass tips right there. Now these are square shoulder or high shoulder arrowheads. We'd have used this type in warfare because these pieces are tied on using animal sinew. Now once this one enters the body, that sinew is going to make contact with blood and it'll start to swell up and rehydrate. So the arrowheads can fall off of these. The only way to get that out would be by pushing it on through the site or by cutting it out. It's going to be a painful process either way you go about it. Warfare, if we were extremely outnumbered, it was just going to thin some of those numbers down for us. We preferred a more honorable fight in that close combat. Our war clubs are also custom made to our warriors. They're going to be made to the length of the arm, all the way to the shoulder. It's more of an extension of the body versus a very unwieldy stick in your hands. Now these are always going to be made out of hardwood. Like this one is a rhododendron burl. We also use walnut, locust, ash, any of those weapons. From about the age of 5 or 6, they'd start learning how to make these and work with them properly. Now, these are only going to be used in hunting small game like squirrels, rabbits, and up to a turkey if we get a headshot. If it's not in the head, it's just going to bounce off those feathers and that turkey's going to be mad and start charging at it. Now, to straighten those pieces of cane out, we're going to have to heat those over a fire just a little bit until they get nice and flexible. And then our artisans will start to slowly bend them over their thigh until they get it nice and straight like you see in this one behind me. This right down here, and there would be a smaller sharpened log that's helping to hold up this big one, but it's also pinning that bait down. And once the bait got on the inside there, you'd start to tug on the bait, and would eventually jerk the small log out from under this, and this big log would fall on top of it. That would either pin the bear or break its back until a hunter could get to it and make that kill for the village. This trap's around half the size of what it would normally be, so this one log would weigh about 900 pounds by itself. Right here in the center is our fish trap. These are going to be made out of river cane and buckskin or even twined mulberry fibers so that we could lash all those together. And we'd actually put these in the water with this opening facing downstream. Now the fish are going to start to swim. Why we talk about both of these cabins together because they're both within the same time period. It's more like this one was built in a time of peace and this one during the time, or excuse me, that one's during a time of peace and this one's a time of war. My bad, I got those mixed up. So you'll notice these logs, they're quickly hewn and notched together for that quick rebuild, whereas these logs are carefully hewn and dovetailed on all 4 sides. Now our mortar in between those logs is a mixture of clay and animal hair or straw. That worked as a really good insulator, so we used it for a lot of things. I've always wanted to see one of their longhouses up there.
I was gonna experience that.
I learned a lot from just other people coming through.
Everybody grabbed onto that.
Oh yes, that was a great little trick.
It was. You have to open up a little pan, keep everything tight for like the first 5 years.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
It's not a
Our original style, in particular for the 1540s, when Hernando de Soto first encountered our tribe. So along the inside, you'll see some posts cross-tied with saplings. And over top of that, we would have done something similar to this, taking the barks of trees or even those saplings, the limbs off of those, and creating a weaving over the homes. So it did resemble an upside down basket, but it was something for that clay and animal hair mixture to adhere to what would be underneath those walls. Okay. And you'll get a better representation of it right up here at the storage house. You'll see how that weaving goes across. This woodwork, similar to the root cellars that we were talking about, you can also think of it like a community pantry. So every year during the harvest time, we would have our own personal gardens as well as the main gardens for the entire village. So what our people would do is each one of us out of our personal garden, we would take so much of that and put it in the storage house. Think of it like
Right.
a voluntary taxation, if you will. Now, anything that was placed in the storage house, be it corn, beans, squash, baskets, pottery, furs, or anything, would be stored in here. Anyone in the village could come and take from here with the understanding that they would turn that in their time of plenty. So if they had a bad harvest that year, or if we were getting ready for feasts or festivities like our green corn or anything like that, we would pull those items.
Mix of critters and bears.
Mm-hmm. So this right here at our trading post, this is where the fur trade comes into play. So everything, of course, would be priced in this buckskin we have behind us. You could bring in other furs. It would just depend on what type of fur it was and the trader as to what amount they would give you for those. But normally it would be about 2 pounds of any other fur to equal one buckskin. A doe skin, I think it would take two of those to equal one buckskin. The only exceptions would be those otter and beaver hides. They've got a natural waterproofing capability to their fur, so they could be worth as much as 4 to 5 buckskins, again, depending on the smaller size than what we would normally make. These would be made out of a tulip poplar, or we know it as a yellow poplar tree. These are going to be about 30 to even 60 feet long. It just really depended on the size of the tree. We'd get or try to find one as close to the riverside as possible when we fell those trees. So what we'd do is take that clay mixture from our housing. And we're going to pack it about this high up off of the base of the tree, and then set fire to the bottom. That clay mixture will help keep the fire centralized and burning inward versus up the tree where we didn't need it to go. And we'd set some strategic fires throughout the center. Once those had burned down enough, we'd take a stone hatchet or an adze. It kind of looks like a miniature garden hoe. We'd chop away at the burned wood and then set another fire. Our dugout method could take around 6 months to even a year to make one canoe. The introduction of metal tools, and particularly the broadaxe, shaved that time into about 6 to 8 weeks, so that was a lot faster for us. But we saw imperfections in that. Of course, when you have a metal axe chipping away at wood, it's creating its own imperfections in the wood, whereas doing that dugout method, the fire is going to automatically show any of the cracks or anything in those. But for waterproofing these, we'd use a mixture of animal fats and pine resin, and as long as these were taken care of, a canoe could last us indefinitely. These would be around 3 to even 5 feet wide. So what we'd do for rowing is to be sitting, well, we wouldn't be sitting, excuse me, we'd be kneeling or standing in one of these. And our rowing method would be taking a long piece of river cane or a tree sapling or locust pole to push ourselves along those riverbeds. We had some pretty extensive trade routes even before European arrival. We could go as far north as Canada, far south as South America, and as far west as modern day
Explaining the things that we have here in the council house to you. Now, every Cherokee village would have a council house, and it would be located on the west side of the square grounds. The council houses would always be constructed on a mound as close to the center of the village as they could possibly get it. Now, the size of the council house would vary depending on the size of a village, and village sizes would vary from small villages of a few dozen homes up to large townships with 2 to 500 homes. The council houses would always be constructed large enough to accommodate every member of the village, including children. Now, you'll notice that the council house has 7 sides, and on the inside are 7 sections of seats. So, like during council meetings and ceremonies, each clan would have their own designated section to sit in. The door to the council house would always face to the east, and it would be constructed in a winding corridor so that the inside was never visible from the outside. Now, at one time, we lived under a clan system, which was a matrilineal system where women were the heads of the clans, and the names of the clans were bird, deer, wild potato, wolf, paint, long hair, and blue clan. Now, each clan was considered to be one big family, so someone was never permitted to marry within their own clan. If someone did want to get married, they would have to choose their partner from one of the other six clans. And once a couple did get married, then the man would pledge his allegiance to his wife's clan, and their children would inherit their clanship from their mother. Now, divorce wasn't really uncommon for us, especially if the man wasn't really providing for the family. And if that was the case, then all the wife had to do was just gather the men's belongings and set them outside the home. That way he knew that he was no longer welcome there, that he would have to go back to his mother's head clan. Also, the mother's brother or the uncle would have a large role in raising the children. That way he could be teaching them the ways of or the ways of the clan. Let's see. Firehouse here in the middle of the room. The firehouse, the fireplace. My bad. Here in the middle of the room is where a fire was kept burning year round. It would be rekindled once a year in late October or early November. Now, at the same time that the council house fire was being relit, the women of the village would be putting out the fires in their homes, cleaning up their fireplaces, and then coming to the door of the council house to get new fire to take back home. This would signify the beginning of a new year, and each clan would also be responsible for bringing in a specific type of wood that would feed the fire throughout the year. If anyone were to ever let that fire go out, they would be punished by death. Now, the eagle wands that you see hanging here were used in our eagle dance. The wands of the eagle the wands are made from sourwood, which is a sacred wood to the Cherokee, and only men of the highest social standing would be able or be permitted to touch or carry these eagle wands. Now, the eagle dance or these eagle wands will be explained a little bit more in detail later on up here at the square grounds in a little bit. Now, the white gourd dippers that you see hanging around here and this white bowl were used in our purification ceremonies. The Cherokee people believed that by drinking spring water or herbal teas from these vessels that they would purify their minds. Now you notice that each clan would have their own dipper to drink from, so that one person from a different clan was never permitted to drink from a dipper of a different clan. Now, the headdress, the white headdress and outfit that you see back here would belong to our peace chiefs. Now, the headdress is made from the tail feathers and down of the white heron, and we would have to trade with coastal tribes in order to get these feathers. The peace chief's cape would be made from the breast feathers of the wild turkey, and it would be trimmed in white because white would symbolize peace. Now, the peace chief was usually an older man who would be in charge of religious ceremonies, marriage ceremonies, and civil council meetings. The peace chief would have a right hand man and a principal speaker. So during meetings and ceremonies, they would occupy the three white seats that you see here. The peace chief would also have a peace council made up of 7 members, one from each clan. Now, the peace chief was usually or had total authority over the village unless the village was threatened by war. And if that was the case, then the peace chief would step down from his position and let the war chief have total authority over the village. Now, the war chief would wear the red headdress, cape, and shield and weapons you see here. The war chief's cape is made from the tail and wing feathers of the wild turkey, and his cape would be trimmed in red because red symbolizes war. Now, the war chief was usually a younger man, and he would be elected to his position by the warriors of the village. Now, the war chief would also have a right hand man, principal speaker, and a war council of 7 members as well. Whenever a man became war chief, he would have to take an oath to never go to war without just cause and to never shed the blood of infants, women, old men, or anyone else who was unable to defend themselves. The war chief was also known as Kalanu or the Raven. Now, each village would have their very own peace chief, war chief, and beloved women. The skirt that you see here belonged to the beloved woman. Now, the beloved woman was usually an elder of, or a widow of a chief or an elderly woman who was highly respected and well known throughout the village. She would be permitted to sit in during council meetings. She would also have a vote in deciding whether or not a village went to war. And it would be the beloved woman and her council who decided if prisoners taken were either put to death or adopted into a clan as a member of the tribe. Now, whenever they did adopt new members, into a clan, they believed that they were replacing other clan members that they had lost due to sickness or
All right,
war.
we're all done. So that was Oconaluftee, and it was awesome. I loved it. I was out of breath earlier because I got to do a dance. It was cool. But now it's time to head out because I have to be back here at 6 o'clock, between 6 and 7 for the drama. And then, sorry, I'm still out of breath. But we have to do that. But first, we're headed to Indian Ink because I'm getting some ink. So, till then, I'll see you guys and into these hills, and y'all have a great Saturday.